Has your investment portfolio underperformed? In this short video, we will show you why and what you can do about it. R.C. Watley is a consulting firm focused on helping financial advisors build better outcomes for their clients. We have identified 5 key considerations that you and your investment advisor should consider when constructing your investment portfolio. Vince Kane, the president of R.C. Watley, will take you through this quick but informative presentation.
We start with this quote from Peter Lynch, one of the most successful investors of modern times, well outperformed the markets in some very tumultuous times of the 1970s and 80s. And it's this quote that we develop these 5 key considerations around. Know what you own and know why you own it. Seems like a pretty simple premise, but we find that most individual investors rarely understand exactly what they own, why they own it, the risk associated with it, or even what the true costs are. And frankly, we even find that advisors and firms at times can't answer these questions about the products and services that they're providing. Those 5 key considerations are, number 1, is it client-centered or is it institutional or institutionalized? Number 2, is it evidence-based or is it more emotional? Number 3, is it an investment process or is it in fact an investment product? Are these decisions based on current data or only the historical performance? And lastly, is the research and the analysis that goes into the construction and the maintenance of the investment portfolio, is it more objective in nature or more subjective in nature? We're going to dig into each one of these in a little bit more detail as we go forward. First, is the investment process client-centered or is it institutional or institutionalized? And here's a couple of examples of what we mean by that. You have no doubt heard in your investment career that this is how institutional money is invested, or this is how smart money, or this is how large institutions allocate their assets. I've even heard specific examples as to this is the way that Harvard's endowment is invested. Well, that's interesting, but Harvard has been around for hundreds of years. The individuals that are responsible for managing that endowment, I'm certain, are confident that it's going to be around for another 1,000 years. The scale of the money that those endowments are dealing with, as well as their time horizons, are just completely different than Howard's. Howard is different. Howard recently sold his manufacturing company and now wants to spend more time doing some traveling, spending some time with the grandkids. He's not going to be around for another 1,000 years. He doesn't have billions upon billions of dollars. He doesn't have a 1,000-year time horizon. He needs to utilize these investments and live off of these investments for the next 30 or 40 years and hopefully leave some legacy for his family. There's just not much similarity between a large institution like Harvard and an individual like Howard. The second piece of this is this idea of institutionalizing the individual investor. This idea that an individual investor can answer 6 or 8 or 12 questions and that somehow magically creates a portfolio that is perfect for that individual. This is an example of something being a little bit too institutionalized for the individual investor, in our opinion. The second point, is it an evidence-based investment process or is it based on emotions? Let's talk about this for a second. Can we all remember the time period in the markets from October 2002 to October 2007? Think about how you felt. Think about your optimism. Think about your feelings toward the economy, toward your future, toward your investments. I can tell you that we were talking with many clients during this period of time, and people were euphoric. People were excited about their property values, about their market investments, and they wanted to maybe even take more risk. Now think about how you felt 17 months later, March of 2009. The market had lost 56%. The S&P had lost 56% over this period of time. This is the point in time where our emotions took over and fear took over, and we wanted to be out, to get out as quick as possible. Stop the loss, stop the bleeding. And it's okay, because these are human emotions. It's part of who we are. It's part of our DNA, but it's almost always the wrong thing to do at the wrong time. We're most excited about the markets and the opportunities at the top. This is what creates bubbles. And we're the most upset, depressed at the bottom of a market where the maximum opportunity is. So it's not that we're going to eliminate these emotions. We just need to remove emotions from the investment process, making it almost wholly focused on evidence. The third point, is it in fact an investment process, or is it an investment product? As recently as 10 or 15 years ago, we believe that there were some actual benefits to owning investment products. They had access to potentially more research. They had access to more timely information. But I think, as we can all attest to, over the last several years, our access to information, our access to data, our access to tools to analyze that information has progressed greatly. So there's been a reduction in the need for investment products, at the same time where there's been a great expansion in offering more and more investment products. So I want to show you an example of something that we've seen recently. This is an example of a client's portfolio, an investment portfolio. It's an IRA, it's a retirement account. It's $487,000 in assets. Inside this account, there were several different mutual funds. In total, inside those mutual funds, they own 4,005 individual stock positions and 10,037 individual bond positions, for a total of 14,042 positions, or about $35.70 per position. I go back to that original quote from Peter Lynch: know what you own and know why you own it. I just cannot imagine how anybody could possibly understand 14,042 positions. This is just one of these examples of what we feel to be too much product and not enough investment process. Now, you look at that last slide, and you may think, well, 14,042 positions, that means I'm well diversified. Not exactly. So the research states very clearly that a one or two stock portfolio, in this case a one stock investment portfolio, has a pretty high standard deviation. Therefore, likelihood of volatility, which can also be expressed as risk. If you add 30 or add 29 positions to 30 total stock positions in a portfolio, the standard deviation, the volatility of that portfolio drops dramatically. But going from 30 to 1,000 or even to 14,000 doesn't drop that volatility metric below 19. So we ask ourselves, is this really diversification, or is it diversification? Next, I want to talk about the idea of basing investment decisions on current information or historical performance. There is an overwhelming desire to want those things that we did not get or cannot have, which is the historical performance that we did not participate in. And this is an example of relying on history and how that can be very, very dangerous. Standard & Poor's is a research company. It's been around for well over 100 years, and they produce a report twice a year. It's called the S&P Performance Persistence Survey, and it looks at basically all mutual funds. In this report that we're looking at here, we can see that there are 660 individual mutual funds that were the top performers for the period ending September 2012. Specifically, for the 5 years ending September 2012, there were 660 mutual funds that ranked in the top quartile, the top 25%. Moving one column to the right, if we look at those same 660 mutual funds 1 year later, only 40%, 40.61% are still in the top quartile. 2 years, only 3.48% of the original 660 are still in the top quartile. 4 years later, September 2016, not a single mutual fund remains in the top quartile. It turns out that this statement that's on every investment presentation, in every prospectus that you've ever seen, past performance is no guarantee of future results, could not be more accurate. The last point we want to make is this idea of objective, more fact-based analysis, or subjective, more opinion-based analysis of investments. And I wanted to think about an example that we could maybe all relate to a little bit easier. And I thought about a cup of coffee. So if we look at this cup of coffee from a quantitative or objective point of view, we would see that it's 8 ounces, it is 146 degrees, the cup is 5 inches tall, and it costs $2.48. If we look at this same cup of coffee from a more subjective or qualitative standpoint, we might say that it has a robust flavor, a strong aroma, it's small, it's expensive. These are not incorrect. It's not a matter of one of these being accurate and the other one not. It's just a matter of the weight that we place or we feel like should be placed on one versus the other. And I'll take a step back and compare this to an investment analysis. So if you looked at an investment from an objective standpoint, you would be analyzing the income statement, the balance sheet, the facts and figures that make the company a good company. If you're looking at it from a more subjective standpoint, you might talk about the management team and their experience and their new offering, their new product offerings, or their entry into new markets. We feel the quantitative type of analysis, the more objective type of analysis, is just more valuable when evaluating investments. So to recap, those are the 5 key considerations. In our experience, in our work with financial advisors and firms, and even clients, we find that most individual investors and most advisors at most firms are utilizing an institutionalized approach to investment that weighs heavily on emotions, either of the client or the advisor, are typically very heavy in investment products, almost always are based on historical performance, and the analysis is more subjective in nature. We have conviction that a client-centered, evidence-based process built on current and objective data will result in better client outcomes.
We hope you found this video both informative and thought-provoking. For more information, please click the link and we will find a convenient time to discuss your portfolio.